Happy Friday, everybody. Got a cool show planned for you today. I definitely want to talk more about this Kathleen Kennedy news and who I think would be a good choice to replace her if the rumors of her stepping down are indeed true. I also want to go over the story about GameStop putting comic books into their stores. That made some waves online. I'm really curious what people think about that. And I want to go over the humongous, unprecedented $400 million deal that Greg Berlanti signed with Warner Brothers to continue his tenure there until 2024. This is the Nerdy News Rundown, your daily dose for nerdy news. Let's get you filled in. Happy Friday, everybody. I hope you are having a good day. I'm, of course, Josh, and let's get you right into the news. Num num. You know what they call this in the Star Wars universe? They call this calf. All right, so the first story today is about comic books, actually. Now, this was broke a couple of days ago, but I wanted to talk about it today on the Friday show. The report is that GameStop, which is, of course, the big video game company out there, they have a bunch of brick and mortar locations. They are putting spinner racks filled with certain comic books into 40 of their stores. And this deal is going to go through Diamond Distribution. And honestly, I thought right away this is very cool. A lot of people will like this. Spinner racks, man, that feels old school. It feels awesome. And there were already comic books in a lot of GameStops out there. This just looks to really solidify that relationship. And so I was thinking, all good. This is dope. Then as I watched a lot of people in the comic book community react to this over the past couple of days, it became clear that a lot of them are not down for this. A lot of people are upset about this. They think it's going to continue to put brick and mortar local comic book shops out of business. It might be bad for comic books in general for any number of different reasons. And basically, there's this weird thing going on where almost all comic book shops have to sort of become a hot topic of sorts because comic book readership is so low that you cannot really sustain a business off of those books in general. Now, without getting too far into comic books themselves, that entire industry is in trouble. It needs a lot of revamping and just forward thinking when it comes to media and changing of the way people consume media these days. So I guess the big thing, the big reason I wanted to bring this story up is I want to know what people think about this. Out there, if you read comic books, what do you think about GameStop having some comic books on spinner racks? And if you don't read comic books and you were to go into a GameStop, would you be likely to pick up a comic book off of a spinner rack? But that's a big story out there. It's making waves. I'm very curious what everybody thinks about that in the comment section below. All right, the next story is about that Greg Berlanti deal. Guys, this deal is freaking huge. I originally saw this as a $300 million deal, but the Hollywood Reporter is telling people that it's actually closer to $400 million. And as a small aside to this story, this is not on points or stock. Apparently, this deal is mostly a cash offering, which would mean that Greg wouldn't get points or percentages on the back end, but also means he's getting a boatload of money. Now, if you don't know who Greg Berlanti is, he is a writer and producer that is really the main reason that the CW shows, this is Arrow, Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, and Supergirl, yeah, he's the reason that all of those shows are incredibly popular and successful for the CW. He's also involved with the new live-action Teen Titans show, and apparently Warner Brothers saw that they really wanted to lock this dude down until 2024. And so the deal is for a ton of new television development. He's going to be working on a lot of new DC television all the way up until 2024. It has nothing to do with movies, and he has a movie deal with Fox, and I'm not really sure what's going on exactly with that, but the deal I'm talking about is all about DC properties, and it's all about television. Now, another story broke yesterday that really has a lot to do with the Greg Berlanti story, and this is, of course, about the coming DC Warner Brothers streaming service. The service, which is named DC Universe, is going to be launching in August. There's a lot of rumors and reports out there that that is indeed when that service is going to launch. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, Warner Brothers announced last year that they were going to do their own streaming service. This is like a version of Netflix, which would have all of the old and new DC properties on it. The big draw is that there's going to be a new Young Justice show that will be on it. The live action Teen Titans show is supposed to be on it. And in general, this shows a move by Warner Brothers to try to tap into this whole streaming service phenomenon. And so I think these two stories really exist in tandem. I mean, Greg Berlanti is going to develop probably a lot of television for the streaming service that DC will launch later this year. So I want to know what all of you are thinking about this. I mean, first of all, what do you think about this deal? $400 million? That's freaking huge. But when you consider what he has done with the CW shows, I mean, it probably makes sense. I'm really curious, where's everybody at with the DC streaming service? And what do you think about this Greg Berlanti story? Let me know in the comments. All right, everybody, we're going to finish off today's show, continuing to talk about this Kathleen Kennedy Star Wars news. Now, I do want to say right at the top, this is still considered a rumor, although I saw more and more trades, more and more outlets talking about this story online over the past couple of days, which suggests that these people at these websites and different things are kind of getting more evidence that this Ankler story has some legitimacy to it. So I guess technically still rumor land, but it's looking more and more likely. Now, I saw a lot of questions from people in the coverage that I did about this story earlier in the week. I had suggested that Kiri Hart would be the best person and in all likely the person to take over for Kathleen Kennedy. Now, even though I'm a huge Dave Filoni fan and I'd love for Dave to get the position, I brought up the differences between animation and Hollywood world and how a lot of people just don't think Dave Filoni is Hollywood enough to do this job. And there were a lot of fair questions asked in the comment section, and so I wanted to talk about this today on the Friday show and sort of dive in a little bit more and explain my comments. And so when it comes to Kiri versus Dave, I think if you just look at the positions that they held and the meetings and different things that they were doing, it's pretty clear to see that Kiri has more of a Hollywood base for the position that she had. I mean, she was literally a producer on Rogue One and The Last Jedi. She's probably in meetings, talking with different people, meeting shareholders. I truly believe that she was actually being groomed for this position by Kathleen Kennedy anyways. Now, if you look at what Dave was doing, he was sort of involved with Rogue One, but only really just doing some voices, which I found interesting, actually. What voices do you think Filoni did for that film? But as far as director and producer, Dave has not been attached to any of the films. So yeah, Kiri has just definitely more experience and I guess just reputation in the film world, which is important to those Hollywood types. Now, let me stop here for just a second. Let me back it up. Let me just be real with you guys 100%. Do I think that Dave Filoni could do that job? Yes. Totally. I think he could do it. I think he could crush as the president of Lucasfilm. And the truth is, as a leader, if you're not super familiar with one aspect of what the position holds, you can bring on other people to do that job for you. Hollywood has this crazy thing where if they don't view you as a Hollywood person, you are not in the inner circle and you're just not thought of as credible enough to do that kind of a Hollywood job. I personally think that is bogus, and I think it would be huge if Disney looked at what the fans wanted and decided to promote Dave to this position, even though a lot of the shareholders and even though a lot of the people in the Hollywood circles would look at that move with a lot of skepticism. I think when you look at the way media is changing, it's not hard to look at what the fans want and throw them a freaking bone. So I'm with you. I'm with you guys. I would love for Dave to get the job. But the reality of the situation is there is a lot of stuff working against him. Like I said, I will admit this is a big problem. This is a problem that big companies have. I mean, guys, they won't even let people that are like television people usually make the jump and do anything when it comes to movies. It's like they're so backwards in their thinking. They're like, no, if you don't fit into this little box here, we're not going to bring you on. It just doesn't make sense for us. There's a whole bunch of people, like, honestly, if you look at the creators behind Star Wars, I'd love for Claudia Gray, who's written incredible Star Wars novels, I'd love for her to be more involved on the creative side of films and television. But once again, the people that are at the top, the shareholders, all of these people, people would look at that and say, no, 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 no. She's a novel person. She's a writer of these YA novels. We can't let her anywhere near film, video games, or television. I think that over time, these walls will sort of break down for people, but for now, they're just established. That's just sort of the way things work. Now, a couple of other names that have been thrown into the hat. I guess the big one is John Lasseter. John is, of course, the head of Pixar, and he's sort of like the Kevin Feige of the Pixar company over there. And John has done a lot with dealing with shareholders, dealing with money. You know, he's big business the whole way. He would make sense on paper for this position. Of course, the problem with this is that John Lasseter has gotten caught up with some of the Me Too movement, and apparently there's a lot of stories about him not being the best of dudes and treating women in a certain way in meetings and different things like that. Now, for now, I think that's all sort of hearsay and stories. I don't know if anything's really been confirmed, but these days on the internet, it almost doesn't matter, right? Once that stuff's out there, once your name is associated with that, I mean, it's kind of over for you. So, I mean, frankly, I think it would be absolutely horrible for Star Wars to put John Lasseter in charge. That's just my personal opinion, and I'm pretty damn sure that the shareholders and a lot of people at the higher ups over at Disney would agree. Now, lastly, I want to throw something at you that's kind of crazy, and just roll with me on this one. I think you're going to dig where I go. And so what if Kathy steps down in September, but there's no immediate announcement made, and they say, we're going to make the announcement of the new president of Lucasfilm at Star Wars Celebration 2019. Now, at that time, what if Kevin Feige himself walked out on stage and was announced as the new president of Lucasfilm Entertainment?
A moment like this, some people wait a lifetime for a moment like this.
I mean, frankly, when I look at all of the choices, when I look at the state that Star Wars is in right now, the amount of money that Disney has poured into that brand and the serious fear that they have when they look at what is happening out there, I think the no-brainer solution, the winner of winners, the thing that would get literally every single person on the same page would be to announce Mr. Kevin Feige himself as the president of Lucasfilm. Now, why would Feige step away from Marvel at this point and join the Star Wars world? Well, first of all, Feige's a big Star Wars fan. That's been made clear in different interviews. He definitely understands the brand, and he is a big fan of it. He also has a great relationship with Bob Iger and with Alan Horn, and probably with every single shareholder that Disney has. I mean, this guy's it's made them a lot of money. You know what I mean? $14 billion is not a small amount of money. And then you think about it, and it's like, well, Feige is essentially ending the first 3 phases of the MCU. There's been a lot of reports out there that they might not even do phases after this. And even though I think he's very interested in getting his hands on the X-Men and being involved with that, I think that, 10 years into this thing, 15 years into this thing, reaching the level of success that he has, it might be a good idea for him to step out of that role, allow new blood in there, and then, do something new, tackle something new. I mean, frankly, every single studio, anybody that wanted to make a shared universe or even any series of films would kill to get Kevin Feige to take over. Disney's probably the only studio that's tight enough with him and can give him the right amount of money to set this thing up. I know it seems unlikely. I know it's not something that a lot of people are talking about, but I think it's the perfect solution to the problem that we have. In fact, I'm so convinced that it's literally probably the only way to really get everybody on the same page. And I'm so convinced that Disney is a smart company and they understand that I am telling you, I think in the next couple of months, you might start hearing rumors of this taking place. Of course, I could be completely wrong, but I'd like to believe I'm pretty decent at prognosticating. I'm putting it out there. I think Kevin Feige is the man to take over Star Wars. Everybody says Star Wars needs a Kevin Feige. What better way to do that than to get the actual Kevin Feige? That being said, let's pass it on to you guys. I want to know what you're thinking about this. What do you think about Kiri Hart taking over? What do you think about Dave Filoni taking over? And did you sort of understand what I was saying about their two kind of different backgrounds, the Hollywood perspective and all of that? What do you think about John Lasseter? I mean, he's probably the man for the job on paper, but I just think it's a bad look. I wouldn't touch John Lasseter at this point. And of course, I want to know, what do you think about Kevin Feige taking over? Would you lose your mind? And do you agree, most importantly, that Kevin Feige becoming the president of Lucasfilm and sort of setting us up for the next 10 years of Star Wars would be a move unanimously praised by every single side of the fan divide? That's going to do it for today's show. I want to once again just thank everybody that's been showing the channel and this show support. You guys are absolutely incredible. I've been having I've been having a ton of fun doing this show. I look forward to giving you guys the news next week as well. We got Star Wars Sunday coming out, got some cool videos there, and I just got a ton of content coming out for you guys about Star Wars, Marvel, DC, everything nerdy is coming at you soon. You can click below to watch more dope videos. You can click our icon to subscribe to get all of our future content. As I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.